Some men inherit the world, others are born to conquer it. In the long chronicle of history, few names resonate with the sound of conquest, quite like Alexander. In a breathtaking campaign lasting just over a decade, a young king from the rugged mountains of Macedonia would topple the largest empire the world had ever known, march his army to the edges of the known map, and, in doing so, become a legend so powerful he was considered a god. This is the story of Alexander the Great. To understand Alexander, we must first understand the father who forged the weapon he would wield, Philip II of Macedon. Before Philip, Macedonia was a backwater kingdom, dismissed by the sophisticated city-states of Greece as a land of semi-barbarians. But Philip was a military and diplomatic genius. He created a truly professional, full-time army, a revolutionary concept at the time. Its heart was the Macedonian phalanx, a dense formation of infantry wielding the sarissa, an enormous 18-foot-long pike. This hedgehog of spears was virtually unbreakable from the front, and it was supported by the world's finest heavy cavalry, the companions. Philip built this combined arms machine. Alexander would turn the key. But Philip gave his son more than an army. He gave him the greatest mind of the age as a tutor, the philosopher Aristotle. For 3 years, Aristotle instructed the young prince in politics, philosophy, and literature, instilling in him a deep love for Homeric legend. Alexander began to see himself in the mold of the great hero, Achilles, whose ferocity he sought to emulate. This was not just an education in facts, but in ambition, teaching him not only how to conquer, but how to build a civilization. In 336 BC, Philip II was assassinated, and the 20-year-old Alexander became king. The Greek states, seeing a boy on the throne, immediately rebelled. Alexander's response was swift and brutal. When the great city of Thebes revolted, he marched his army south at incredible speed. After a bloody siege, where the Thebans fought valiantly, the city fell. To make a terrifying example for the rest of Greece, Alexander asked the League of Corinth, which he controlled, to vote on the city's fate. They voted for its complete destruction. He razed the city to the ground, sparing only the temples and the house of the poet Pindar, and sold its 30,000 survivors into slavery. The message was clear and absolute. The time for Greek infighting was over. All of Greece was now united, by force, behind him. With his homeland secure, in 334 BC, Alexander did what his father had only dreamed of. He crossed the Hellespont into Asia with an army of around 48,000 men to challenge the Persian Empire, a colossal state ruled by King Darius III. His first act on Asian soil was to visit the ancient city of Troy and make sacrifices at the tomb of Achilles, his hero. It was a masterful piece of propaganda, framing his invasion not as a land grab, but as a new Trojan War, a fated clash between East and West. His ambition was further symbolized at the city of Gordian. Here, He was shown the legendary Gordian Knot, an intricate knot of rope tied to an ancient ox cart. Prophecy held that whoever could untie it would become the ruler of all Asia. After struggling with it briefly, Alexander declared, "It makes no difference how they are loosed," drew his sword, and sliced the knot in half. He did not solve the puzzle, he created his own solution. The Persian king, Darius, massively underestimated the young Macedonian. At the Battle of Issus in 333 BC, Darius brought forth a huge army. But Alexander, using a brilliant, daring cavalry charge that he led himself, broke the Persian line and charged directly at Darius. Terrified, the Persian king fled the battlefield, leaving his army to collapse. After this victory, Alexander turned south to secure the Mediterranean coast. His greatest challenge was the island fortress of Tyre, a city that considered itself impregnable. The Tyrians refused to surrender, believing their walls and their powerful navy could hold out forever. So for 7 months, Alexander undertook one of the most incredible engineering feats of the ancient world. He built a massive causeway, a land bridge nearly a kilometer long, through the sea, under constant attack from Tyrrhenian ships. He constructed gigantic siege towers, some of the largest ever seen, and mounted them on ships to assault the walls from the sea. When the city finally fell, his revenge for the long siege was brutal. From there, he marched into Egypt, who, hating their Persian rulers, welcomed him as a liberator. The Egyptian priests declared him a pharaoh, and, after a journey to the oracle of Siwa Oasis, a son of the god Zeus Ammon, it was here the transformation began in earnest. Alexander, the king, was beginning to see himself as Alexander the god. He did more than conquer Egypt. He created. At the mouth of the Nile, he personally laid out the plans for a new city, one that would bear his name for eternity: Alexandria. He envisioned it not just as a capital, but as a future center of commerce, culture, and learning for the entire world. Finally, in 331 BC, he met Darius for their final showdown at the Battle of Gaugamela. Once again, the Persians vastly outnumbered the Macedonians, and once again, Alexander used superior tactics and a decisive, personal cavalry charge to shatter the Persian center and force Darius to flee. Darius escaped, but his authority was shattered. He was later betrayed and assassinated by one of his own satraps, Bessus. Upon finding Darius's body, Alexander gave his former enemy a royal funeral. He then hunted down Bessus and had him executed as a regicide. This was a clear political statement. Alexander was not just a conqueror, he was the legitimate successor to the Persian throne. But conquering Persia was one thing, ruling it was another. Here, Alexander began his controversial policy of fusion. He adopted elements of Persian dress and court ceremony, and, in a massive ceremony at Susa, ordered thousands of his soldiers, including his top generals, to marry Persian noblewomen, an act meant to literally breed a new ruling class. This was deeply unpopular with his proud Macedonian veterans, but for Alexander, it was the only way to rule a vast, multicultural empire. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, he pushed his army further east, into modern-day Afghanistan and Pakistan. He marched his men all the way to India, where they won a final, costly battle against King Porus and his war elephants. It was there, at the Issus River, the edge of the known world, that his exhausted army finally mutinied. After 8 years and thousands of miles of marching, they refused to go any further. In a tense standoff, Alexander, for the first time, had to bow to the will of his men. Reluctantly, he agreed to turn back. His return journey was arduous. It was during this time that his closest friend, his lifelong companion and alter ego, Hephaestion, died of a fever. Alexander was consumed by a grief so profound that he reportedly lay on Hephaestion's body for a day and a night, refusing to eat or sleep. He had conquered the world, but he had lost the one person he considered his equal. He himself died in Babylon a few months later, in 323 BC, at the age of just 32, his vast new empire already beginning to fracture. And that is the architecture of the conquests of Alexander the Great. Remember, history is more than a story. It's a code, and there is always another layer to decrypt. Subscribe and continue the investigation with us.